You want to become a coach, but you don't know how to get started. You want to start charging for your products and your services, but you don't know how to price them. In today's episode, my guest will share how she got started, as well as how she started growing her business to where it runs on referrals. Welcome to the Empowered Podcast, episode 94. Thank you for tuning into this episode of the Empowered Podcast. I'm your host, Valerie Wells, and I am here to empower and equip you. I believe that you can do whatever it is that you set out to do. And to help you accomplish your goals, to help you get your business started or take it to the next level, this interview today comes directly out of my membership site. You can get started for just $1. You get a full month's access, and you will get access to the next experts call that I offer. I do one every single month, and this expert came from June. If you want to know how to become a coach, we're going to ask her questions about, is certification necessary? If so, how and where do you do that? Who is the ideal client, and how do you figure out who that is? How do you determine where you should price your products and services, and how do you get to that point? We look a little bit at technology and do a fantastic job of setting you up and pointing you in the right direction if coaching is something that you want to do now or possibly in the near future. And let me tell you, we all have knowledge that somebody else doesn't have and they want and are often willing to pay for. And I want to encourage you to take notes during this episode, learn from my guest, and after we're done, I'll wrap up with a special message. Thanks for joining us today. Today's guest is Valerie Groth, and I'm excited to have Valerie because she is doing what so many of us want to do. She is a full-time coach. She has a website that hopefully she'll tell us how she generates leads and what she does to convert them, how much she charges, or how she figured out what to do, how she got to that point, and how she has started and therefore grown her business. So we'll welcome Valerie to the show today. How you doing, Valerie?
Hi, thank you. It's great to be here.
You are very welcome. I'm glad to have you. Like I just said, you know, you're doing what so many listeners and members of the membership site want to do. You're working for yourself, number one, and number two, you're able to have I don't know if you'd call it digital freedom, but the freedom to, I assume, do your business from anywhere that you would find yourself all over the country or world, right?
Yeah, exactly. I love it.
So before, I've only asked this question at this point in the show one time, but we'll start off with this one. Valerie, what do you want to be known for?
Good question.
No softballs here.
So I don't know if this is a cheating answer to you, something I've already kind of thought about before. My personal mission in life is to inspire 1 million people to live fulfilled, empowered, and passionate lives. And I do that through a couple of different things that I'm sure we'll talk about. But one of them is my coaching and my speaking and what I do as a podcaster as well. That's kind of my business side. And then there's also actually a nonprofit side to what I do. And those two pieces seem very different, I think, to some people. But from my vantage point, they all are kind of related to that same mission and very much in alignment with what are my core values. So that's kind of what I want to be known for. Is I think it's kind of a lofty goal just in terms of that quantifying factor of 1 million people. But the reason for that is just I think I don't know where it came from or why, but I think that's my purpose, is somehow to be here to inspire people to do what they love and to live a fulfilled life. And I think so many people don't get a chance to do that. So that's what I would love to be known for. If it's not 1 million people, if it's 5, then, that's fantastic. But I'm trying to aim big. So
the journey of 1 million miles starts with a single step, right? Or 1 million people starts with one person. We can
yes.
That. Well, I just noticed, I pulled up your website before we started the call, and I noticed in the last maybe 2 weeks, you have changed your domain. You used to have inspiration in the title or in the URL. Why the change?
Okay, yeah. Kind of a long story there. You'll probably ask me the question of learning lessons I've had along the way. We'll come back to the website thing later, I'm sure. But one thing that happened in the last month and a half, actually about 2 months ago, was my website crashed. And I lost everything and wasn't planning on doing a big redesign, but I kind of had to. And then in the process, we found the old stuff and could kind of piece it together. So I kind of rebranded out of a necessity because I wanted to do it and the website crashed and it seemed like a really good time to do so. Now, going to my own name as my domain, it seemed like it made sense in terms of inspirationwithval.com was great for a while. And when I started, I didn't know, my name was nobody when I started. And that's kind of the hard part is I think so many of us have that question of like, am I going to brand myself as Ellery or am I going to be like, live your best life or, different kind of taglines. And when you get started, your name doesn't mean anything. So it makes sense to do something else. But now my name has a little bit more brand recognition and I'm trying to be more of just that version of myself versus Inspiration with Val is the title of my podcast, which is just a small part of what I do. So I just kind of wanted to put everything all in one place. And I already had valeriegroth.com, that was being redirected to the old site. And I just kind of switched things around and made that my homepage.
Well, and in fact, I know just Matt, who's on the call with us listening in, has gone through this issue in the last 30 days, if you want to call it an issue. It makes it sound like it's a bad thing. And I know I did too. ElleryWells.com was not my first domain. It was probably, actually, even what I had before was not the one that I wanted. So I just had this gut revelation, went with that one, and then switched to ElleryWells.com in I think it was like April of 2014. Would you suggest anyone going into building a brand online or a blog or anything, maybe even not business, would you suggest they just go out there and try to grab their name, or do you think?
Definitely. Oh yeah. I think everyone needs to. I've told my friends who have babies, I think you need to go and get your kid's name, .com. And I've even been told recently that you should get like Valerie Speaks. I have that. I either have ValerieSpeaks.com or Speaker Valerie is one of my new ones that I got.
Okay.
Just because, why not? Who knows what's going to happen down the line. And maybe we'll need that for our own personal resume, and you want to make it easier on yourself or easier on your kids. That's not, Ellery, Ricardo, hyphen this.com, right? Because your name's taken. So I definitely think everyone needs to have it. In terms of, do I think everyone needs to start with that as opposed to doing what you and I did and kind of like trying something else first and coming back to it? I think it depends on the industry and the person, but I'm leaning towards yes. I think that there's no reason why you shouldn't just kind of build a brand around yourself and your own name. And it's been a while since I read what was the Gary Vaynerchuk book where he talked a lot about that? I think it was Crush It, one of his first books. And even back then, he kind of advocated that even if you're not in entrepreneurship, don't run your own business, even if you're just someone who works for corporate America, it's important to establish yourself as a brand because when you are looking for a new job or trying to bring in new clients, you still kind of want to have that brand identity for yourself. So I think it's probably a good thing.
Well, you and I seem to get sidetracked a lot every time we have one topic idea. Anyway, the corporate America thing is a good idea, even if you just had a single page and it was your resume and a headshot. That would be a good way to direct people to, instead of linkedin.com/in/johnsmith17 or whatever, as far as branding, it would be a much better. Oh,
yes. And another one that I got, I also got ValerieBook.com recently.
Valerie Book or like?
Book. Valerie Book.
Okay.
With the idea that one day I'd like to have a book. It's not a priority for me this year, but I'm sure one day that'll be something that I'll do. And, why not make it easier on someone, instead.
So some of those.
I'm looking for me, Valerie Book.
Yeah, some of those big name people, as you've probably seen, like Pat Flynn has one, Pat's book, and a lot of podcasters would have like ValerieLoves.com/Amazon or, an affiliate link or something like that. Just before I started, I guess I should say, I thought domains just were super expensive and super complicated. I didn't think, hey, I can go. I've literally bought a domain for $1.17.
Wow.
It was one of those GoDaddy promos, and it was 99 cents, and then of course a little bit of tax and the ICANN fees. I'm pretty sure it was $1.17. I don't even use it anymore. But domains don't have to be cheap, so you're snagging some up, which is kind of cool. And I like the. I'm looking over here on my other screen there. I liked Valerie. It's shorter than inspiration.
That's true. That's true. Well, I was a little worried about how to spell my last name, but I mean, either you're with someone and you can spell it, or it's on a business card and they can see it.
Well, did you ever read Entree Leadership by Dave Ramsey?
No.
If you go to DaveRamseySucks.com, it reroutes to Dave Ramsey, and he talks about buying the negative domains around you. So you could buy a variation of the actual spelling. Not that you would want to buy ValerieGrothSucks.com.
Right.
But you could buy the different spelling that people might think, and it may.
But that's amazing.
May help people. Yeah. So.
It's funny. I see myself, continuing to kind of grow and expand where I am, but I've never envisioned myself being at the level where people are looking up, my name sucks. I don't know. Maybe you need to dream bigger, right? But interesting. Hey.
You you've made it when you have some haters, right?
Yeah, that is true. This is true.
So I don't know if you and I have talked about this before today or not, but how did you get started? I know you have a couple, I think 2 master's degrees, one in maybe psychology and another one education or something. How did you get started? Take us back, before Inspiration with Val, before you had the name to go along with it. Where, a couple years before that, how did you get started?
Sure. So my background is bachelor's in social work. Bachelor's in psychology, master's in social work, and second master's in educational leadership. So I worked as a therapist in different roles, and I worked in private practice. I worked with, addiction, mental health. I worked in the schools here in Chicago, in the inner city schools. That was kind of where I got practice in the mental health space. And what I do as a coach is very similar, but very different. But with that being said, I was just doing another interview and I was looking back and thinking, even though I was doing therapy, and at the time that's what it was called, I was doing a lot more coaching than therapy. I probably shouldn't have been, but that was what I thought worked better. And I still to this day think it's really important to integrate those 2 practices. So I kind of fell into coaching kind of by accident. There was a point where I knew that I needed to make a shift. I needed to make a career transition for various reasons. From
counseling to something else?
Yeah.
Okay.
And stepping back to why that is. So at the time I was working as an inner city school social worker with children and families and teens going through really difficult situations. So, people in poverty, dealing with a lot of hunger, violence, abuse, neglect, tons of serious trauma, a lot of dealing with kids who are suicidal, homicidal, a lot of grief counseling, crisis counseling, really difficult situations. And I really enjoyed the work, but it was very emotionally draining, as you can imagine. But what didn't work for me was, while it's really important to me to help people and to be of service, one of my core values is achievement and seeing results and seeing progress. You're like, yeah, because we need that as entrepreneurs, right? And there was a point where I realized this is never going to be where I can stay forever. And I thought for a while it was, and I realized I can't, because I need that peace. There's so often I'd go to work and I'd try and help the families and the children, and I'd make a little move forward and I'd feel really great. And the next day I'd be 20 steps back. And I just personally can't operate that way. Like, I need to feel like my work is being valuable in some way. The reality is, I know it's one of those industries where you plant the seed, maybe 30 years down the road, that child makes a different, decision based on what I did with them. But that wasn't enough for me. And I realized that's okay. So there are people who that was going to be a satisfying career for them, but I realized that for me, I needed more. So I sat down and I thought about, what are the things that are important to me? What are my core values and what's being met here, what's not? And I try to find a way that I can meet all those different components that were really important to me. And I put out the word to my friends and family one day that, I know there's something that fits all those different things. And I had a very visceral feeling that there was something exactly perfect, just this missing puzzle piece for me, where all of those values and different components would be in place. But I didn't know what it was. And it was just kind of like on the tip of my tongue. And my sister had texted me that day and said, why don't you be a life coach? And my mom actually had been telling me for many, many years to be a coach. And I disregarded her because, she's my mom. What does she know? I don't know how to be a life coach. What the hell is a life coach? And when my sister said it, it kind of just, this light bulb went off. And I didn't quite fully understand what it was. And doing some research, I thought that's exactly what I love to do and what I've pretty much been doing under the guise of therapy. So that's kind of how I fell into coaching, is working in a world that was similar but different, and realizing that I needed to make that shift.
Now, are you certified as a life coach?
I am.
Now, what is that certification process like? And was there a difference before getting the certification as compared to after?
Well, okay, it depends. On the one hand, I think one of the problems that I have with the word life coach is, I don't know. I don't think a lot of people know what that really means. It can mean a lot of different things depending on who you're going to. There are a lot of life coaches out there that have no background in, working with someone's inner thoughts and feelings. I feel like because I did have that therapy background, I feel extraordinarily qualified to do this work, in the way that there are a lot of life coaches that just think, hey, I like to help people or tell them what to do and give them advice. I'm going to be a life coach. It's not about giving advice. It's not about solving their problem for them. It's much different than that. So my honest opinion is that there are a lot of coaches out there who should not be coaches. And that's how it is in any profession. So the problem being is that there is no regulatory body that makes all life coaches be certified. With that being said, there is a process called the ICF, and you can become certified through them. And there are coaching institutes that are trained by the ICF, and they can certify you during that same process. So I became certified. I went through a coaching school. I am certified through them. However, I've never been asked by a client if I am certified. So it's never really come up in that capacity. So my answer is, I think it's important to go through the training just for your own professional development and to make sure that you're doing, your due diligence to be great as a coach. But I've never been asked by a client, do I have that certification, or been asked for documentation. So you don't have to have that to get started at the same time.
Would you say you let me rephrase, would you say you got more benefit through or from going through the certification process, or the background in the degrees in psychology and social work?
I would definitely say the background in psychology and social work. Why? I'm trying to think how to. I think it was just a lot more comprehensive, and a lot more based on theoretical techniques, versus the coaching was just easier to learn. I think for me, on top of that.
Can you give us an example of what you would learn in that type of certification?
And with coaching?
Yeah. Through the ICF.
Mm-hmm. So there's different kinds of classes that you have to go through to learn how to do different types of things as a coach. You have to have so many hours working with a mentor coach. So a coach who is certified to just kind of walk you through the process. And you also have to have so many hours of coaching under your belt as well. And to move to certain levels, you have to also record a session with you and a client and get that approval. And there's what's called practicum. So that's kind of a live experience where you're coaching a stranger and they record you and they rate you based on what level. Right. Well, but they're not strangers. So let's say there's all 5 of us who are coaches. We would coach each other on the call. So it's a stranger, but it's not like any Joe off the street who's, spilling their guts for recording purposes. So there's a kind of a multi-step process to get certified through that.
Interesting. Yeah, because I think it has come up. I think I've been asked if I wanted to get certified as a coach, and I haven't really put much thought into it. But my degree is also in psychology. I have a bachelor's degree in psychology, right. And I worked at Mission Waco, which works with like elementary and middle school kids for a few semesters. I know it was more than one, and doing a lot of different locations, doing different things. And I don't think the kids that I was working with were old enough to, have murder on the mind like you're mentioning. But, Waco is a really poor place outside of the quote Baylor bubble. It goes downhill really fast. So I have had years of, I don't want to say years of experience, but I guess it's probably true.
Right.
The degrees there, the experience working with kids. I never did the MHMR, the mental health and mental retardation stuff, but I had people who did. I thought about it. And I think when you go into the field of psychology, your brain works a little just like engineers, right? Engineers, they see the world differently. They may see like in that TV show numbers floating around, or all they see is code from the Matrix or something. It just you see the world one way, and I think when you go into the field of psychology, you probably have to see the world a certain way as well. And it's nice to know that your background is somewhat similar to mine. We kind of headed in sort of the same direction, but it all came from the background of I would agree, seeing results and then not seeing results, and wanting to be able to tell somebody, hey, look, you're never going to be able to change if you don't leave this environment. And you're talking to a 7-year-old and they're skipping school and all that. You can't say those kinds of things. And wanting to be able to have that significant impact on somebody's life and see that over a course of amount of time. So that's pretty awesome. What is you said ICF. Who is your ideal client? Or is it a niche, or have you figured that out? I'm sure you have.
Another good question. Yeah, it's funny because everyone talks about like you have to niche down further and further and further until you can't niche down harder. I resisted that. And I really think, because I've talked to other people who have a similar background to me, I think it was because of my work as a social worker. And, social work is a little bit different than maybe being a psychiatrist or a school counselor, in the way that in social work school and my graduate degree, you're kind of trained to be like this Mother Teresa mindset. Like, you help everyone. You're not here to make money. Like, you help the poor and the ill and everyone. And so it was very hard for me to niche down at first. It was really, really tough because there's still a big part of me that thinks that, if there's someone who needs me, I'm here to help them. And likewise, and another big struggle, and I don't want to go off topic, but it was so flippin' hard for me to charge rates, which I think is worth bringing up. We can talk more about that.
Yes, I would love to.
And that comes back to, that's hard for a lot of people. I think pretty much everyone when you go into a place of being a freelancer. But again, I talked to a lot of people who've come from the world of working in nonprofit and a service industry like social work. It was really, really hard because I just wanted to help people and I wanted to work for free. And what was hard for me was I love coaching and I get to see these transformational moments, and that's awesome, right? Excuse my language. This is like the best thing in the world. So why would I get paid? Why would I get paid a lot of money? I would do this for free. And the only way that I was able to get away from that was, one, the more results I saw, the more I was able to say, my clients are really happy and, they're willing to pay for this. Like, this is changing their life in huge, huge ways. And two, it's kind of the same principle of joining a gym. The idea that if you join a gym for free, you're not going to go as much as if you join a gym for $20. If you join a gym for $200 a month, you're going to make sure that you go every single day to the gym. So that was part of it too, is realizing over time, since I had been in a place of working for free at the beginning to get experience and clients and testimonials, and then making more and more and more, the clients who pay you the most are absolutely the ones that get the most from the experience. And so that helped me a lot, just knowing that it's not about me charging a flat rate, or a certain number just to, pad my own bank account, but my clients are getting more from the experience that way. And that's what it comes down to ultimately, is I want them to have those results.
So what would you say is that that ideal client? Did you
Oh, yes.
figure out, sorry, I was like, I'll get to my next question.
Yeah.
But I sometimes get so into the conversation, I forget what my initial question was and don't come back to it. So who is who is the ideal client? No, it's fine.
Yeah. My ideal client is someone who has really big dreams and wants to change the world and knows that there's something within them that kind of wants to come out and make an impact and leave their mark. But they feel like that's been trapped for a long time. You know, they feel like they've been very stuck and very stagnant and not living up to their full potential. And those have been my favorite clients, is those individuals who are very similar to me in the way that when I was younger, I had a lot of big ideas and I wanted to be an entrepreneur and innovate and do exciting things. And I lost that, like a lot of teenagers, I kind of lost that sense of self and self-love, and I kind of strayed away from that path and came back to it later in life. And just in the past decade, I feel like I've really kind of come into, my own power and my own strength. And so many people, we waste a lot of time not being in that place. That's who I love to work with. It's not just someone who's like, well, I want to get healthier. Well, that's fine if it's part of a bigger vision. My favorite clients are those that have a really big mission, or even if they don't know what it is, they know there's something within them and that they do have that desire to kind of make their mark on the world and to make big change. I love clients who are really open-minded and clients who are willing to try new things. A lot of what I do with my clients can be, sometimes I challenge them to do interesting, unique, kind of crazy things.
Can you give us an example?
I knew you were going to ask that. I'm trying to think of a good example because a lot of it's kind of individualized.
Rappel down a high-rise in Chicago, maybe?
Well, I'll give you an example that I wouldn't consider to be a really crazy out there example, but something that my client was very resistant to. I asked a client to go to an improv class, which was very much outside of her comfort zone. And you go to Toastmasters, right? No?
Yeah. No,
I thought you went to Toastmasters.
I did consistently for like 8 months, and then I would be in the middle of doing something, for the business, I guess. And
I know. I'm actually
going to take 2 hours out of my day.
I know. And my Toastmasters is 2 blocks from where I live. It's so easy to walk there.
So you have no excuse not to go.
To me. Right. But I actually encourage a lot of my clients to go to Toastmasters, even if they don't want to be a great public speaker, because as you know, the confidence that you get is so transferable to all areas of your life. But the client that I asked to go to an improv class had a really good experience, and she's been one of my clients who's had some really fantastic transformation in all areas of her life and has just come really, really, really far since I've worked with her. So that was something that she was not going to do on her own for sure, but had a really good experience with. How
long do you normally work with your clients on a per meeting basis and over time?
Mm-hmm. So most of I would say all my clients, we have 2 calls a month. And those are typically about an hour. I say typically because, it's not therapy. It's not, the bell dings and we're up, see you later, because we're not always in a great place to stop and to wrap things up. And so if we're in a good place to stop 45 minutes in, fine. If it's an hour and a half one day, I'm fine with that too. It's about your results and your insight and your awareness. So, but definitely 2 calls a month, usually every other week. And most of my clients purchase 3, 6, or 12-month packages right now. I have a couple clients that I've worked with for a while who it's like a monthly retainer type service. In terms of how long I work with clients, that kind of depends too. The thing about coaching is you're coming to me to coach you because you want to see some changes. And whatever has been working for you or not working for you has been 20, 30, 40, 50 years in the making. So you'll get results right away. My clients would tell you that they do see results after or during that first call, right? And definitely kind of within the first couple months. But it's just kind of like going to the dentist. So you don't want to stop going when your teeth are healthy. You want to keep going to stay healthy so you don't kind of regress. So I do have a lot of clients that I worked with for quite a few years now because, that's the more we work together and the more that they're growing and expanding, the better results that we get.
Now, how did you come up with the every other week, 3, 6, 12 months? Was that something ICF kind of guided you? Do they provide that guidance, or how did you come up with this structure?
Yeah, they don't provide any guidance. When I started, I didn't know what to do, and I was used to therapy as like every other week typically. So I had every week and twice a month, and I realized I've always felt like for all my clients are so different, but the one commonality is once a week is usually too often for them to have a lot of time in between and space to think and to do and to kind of take action on what we discuss. Once a month, I don't think is enough. Occasionally I'll be on vacation or they'll be on vacation. We have to extend things and it's once a month. That's not ideal. Twice a month, I think, is just kind of, for me, that magic number.
Yeah, I went through a similar process. That's how I came up with structure. From the outside in, some people might think I just pick stuff and go with it. But like you said, I have had mastermind meetings that were every week. And it was just, it sapped energy, it seemed like. And so now my mastermind meetings are every other week. It's not on the 1st and 15th or whatever, but it's every other week. And sometimes, it's 3 in a month. Sometimes it's not. And then the coaching, the exact same thing. I do every other week there. And my first coaching client, she was once a month. And I agree, completely agree. That's too long. Yeah. 1 week or every other week, it's like, oh my gosh, I have no energy. I don't, but then again, the once a month is definitely too far. And I actually thought, and I talked about this in a mastermind blog post series that I wrote, that one every 10 days would maybe be ideal, but that's a logistics nightmare.
Yeah, that gets a little tricky.
Yeah. But every 2 weeks is almost like I'm kind of losing a little bit of momentum. But we've got the moment, we got the meeting in a couple. I don't do that every 10 days, but I had this.
That would be so hard to do that.
Yeah. Maybe.
I always thought 2 weeks was the sweet spot compared to once a month and compared to once a week, but I never really thought about tweaking that a little bit. Well,
yeah, like I said, it's just a kind of an experiment that I ran in my head. Because again, once a week's too often. Every 2 weeks is just. I get guys that are like, yeah, I just kind of lost motivation last week, and if we'd maybe shaved off, well, I guess that would be like 4 days. Maybe we could have kept that momentum going, but again, it's kind of impossible. So I find other ways to keep in contact with through Facebook or phone calls or emails or something like that. I don't always get to everybody, but I try to stay connected with people between those two meetings. So you go 3, 6.
That's what I was going to say as well. Yeah, as I just I'm always available for unlimited email support. I've also occasionally gotten on an emergency phone call if needed, but definitely I'm always there for support. And I'm sending my clients resources and things to think about and things to read in between calls. So I think that helps a little bit to make those 2 weeks go by a little faster and to keep the accountability and that momentum.
So do most of your coaching clients, do they come to you? Are they referrals? Do you reach out and say, hey, I think I could really help you through this, and you kind of recruit them? How does that process work for you?
That's a good question in terms of, I wish I knew. I should figure out exactly like what the breakdown is. And I haven't thought about that in a while.
But you do eat all three of those?
It's kind of from, yeah, absolutely. I have a lot of referral clients. I've gotten clients through my own podcast and from being on other podcasts. I've gotten clients through social media, only through Twitter. Never gotten a client through Facebook. Never gotten a client through Instagram or LinkedIn or Pinterest.
You sound a little bit bitter about that.
Well, no, and I'm not trying to. I'm just making a point for anyone listening. Like, you don't have to be
stupid Facebook.
Well, you know how Facebook is. I mean, I have my assistant post on my Facebook page. It's just an afterthought for me. I don't have any engagement in there anymore, and it's useless.
Yeah.
And I'm fine with that. I personally deactivated my Facebook newsfeed. I use a newsfeed eradicator. So when I go on Facebook, I can see messages and notifications. I don't see a newsfeed. And a lot of people are doing that too. I know that, so if my clients are less on Facebook, then I'm not really going to waste my time on Facebook either,
Yeah, there are definitely some people who just really piss me off on Facebook. So not the way that I see the world.
Yeah.
And
you need to block those people.
Well, they're usually friends of friends.
Like the mute, so you don't see their posts.
Yeah, no, it's usually the friends of friends. They'll post something, and sometimes it's the friends that post stuff. And I've unfollowed people, I've unfriended people, but I have not gone in and set the thing where it's blocking the news feed. I've heard of that. Yeah. I've heard it recommended and whatnot, but have not actually done it myself.
I love it.
How many coaching sessions did you do for free before you started coaching? And that's a question from Steve.
I have a pro bono client that is very, very discounted. I prefer not coaching for free anymore because, like I mentioned earlier, I don't know if you found this to be the case, but free equals it's just not the same level.
It's no value.
It's just not. I mean, I've done it a few times thinking like, I know this is going to work. It just doesn't. It's good, but it's just not the same for the client. And it's not the same for me. I think, I don't know. It's different because I think when there's no exchange like that.
Well, people don't value, they don't value things that they get for free. If they're free cookies, what's wrong with them? If it's a free movie ticket, I might show up. It's free. So it doesn't matter if I don't show up. And the same, I'm sure, applies to coaching. And again, I did it again. Well, let's finish that question. We got to go back to
and I agree with you in terms of why they're not committed, but I also think it applies to me too in the way that, let's say like what's happened before is a lot of the clients who I've tried to coach for free were individuals that I knew. Maybe they were kind of like, we were kind of friendly. And the danger in that is, when you're not paying me and we know each other, then it's really hard for me to be fully in the coach role because sometimes a coach is going to do something or say something that you're not going to like, but it's helping you to see what you need to see and get to where you want to be. And that's fine. I'm fine doing that if our agreement is I'm the coach and you're paying me as a professional to work with you in that capacity. But if there's no exchange like that, that puts me in a little bit of an uncomfortable position in the way that I don't know how you're going to take this. And you haven't invested in me as your coach per se, right? So for that reason, I think it's harder on the coach too. And I know a lot of coaches have that same experience.
What about when you first started out? Did you do free coaching? How did you get from the social work aspect to charging for your time?
Yeah, well, the initial question was how many sessions, I think, or how many clients. I don't know how many clients or sessions were free, but I probably just a few months. I don't know. It's a good question. But I got testimonials and I got referrals from all of those clients. So that was really valuable too. And I think if anyone is listening and they're thinking of being a coach, is anyone in your group thinking about being a coach or are they coaches?
One guy's thinking about doing two are fitness. One's more of a business model for fitness. We've got, I don't think she has the desire to be a coach. Trying to run through the list. You put me on the spot, Val. It's not fair.
Oh, no, it's okay. I didn't know if I should go into that or not.
Okay. Briefly.
Yeah, I mean, I know there's different kinds of coaches, so anyone could kind of go down that path. I think if you are thinking about it, just get started and get clients for free. We talked about the ICF and certification, but a lot of people come to me and want me to teach them how to be a coach. And that's one of the first things that we'll do is don't think about your website or logo. And I know it's hard. We all want to do that first. I did too. But you need to just get out there and get experience coaching. And if you like it, you'll figure that out. You'll get experience and you'll get better and better. Or you'll figure out really quick, I don't like this, or I'm not supposed to be in this place. And then you didn't have to waste putting together a website and all that extra stuff behind the scenes. So I think whether it's health coaching or business coaching or life coaching, if you're considering it, just go out and get some clients and just practice. And going by what I've said about not doing free clients, and it worked for me at the very beginning, so it can work for you too, but make it really minimal. Say, I'm going to charge you $10 a session. And I've been advised to actually tell someone who's pro bono, and I've done this for my one discounted client right now, is send them a bill for what it would be worth, kind of like a scholarship. So this is valued at $300 a month, or whatever you would normally charge, or what you think you could be charging. So I think you just have to kind of go out there and get clients and get started. And that's the only way to get better and to feel comfortable and to feel confident, is just to get clients.
Okay.
So at first, but
that brings us back to the question that I moved on from too quickly. How do you normally get clients? The reaching out, you've got a coaching page on your website that I'm scrolling through. Leads come from that. You mentioned podcasts, being on and hosting your own.
Yeah.
Twitter.
Okay. Speaking engagements too. Doing in-person speaking engagements too has been a good referral for me.
Now, what do you say? Do you say, I just gave this awesome talk, and by the way, if you want more, I do one-on-one coaching. How does that process go? Tell me.
I've never said that. I've never pitched one-on-one coaching. I've never pitched a group program. I probably could. Maybe I should. But I've never done that before. It's just been, if you have any questions, here's my email. I'd love to talk to you. Let me know what you think. And people just kind of follow up and find me that way organically. But I think it's a good idea. I think, if they're wanting to hear you talk, it's not a sleazy thing to pitch them what else you can offer them.
Do you, once they email you or once they call you, do you say, hey, I would love to coach you on this? Or is it, I went to your website, Val, and I saw that you do coaching. Would you coach me? How does that go?
Yeah. So in that case, typically they've emailed me later and said, I do want to work with you. For someone who I don't have the interaction in person, and most of my clients come to me virtually. I have clients in Chicago that I've never met.
And they're right down the road.
Yeah. And the funny thing about that is when I first started coaching, because I worked as a therapist, which is all in person, I thought, I'm really good at this. I'm going to coach in person too. No. I love coaching over the phone. And as much as it's nice, like right now I get to see you and see how you're reacting and your expressions. When I coach, it's very different. I don't know what it is, but for me personally, I get into the zone when I can tune out all of the external distractions and external stimuli, and focus on my client and just hear what I'm hearing. And you pick up on so much more in terms of changes in slight intonation and breathing and the really slight nuances that in person you would never get a chance to pick up on.
So you do mostly over the phone then?
All over the phone, Skype for international clients. And I love it. I love it. I love it. I would never want to do in-person coaching, even for my clients who I have met in person, because I think it allows them to be a little bit more vulnerable and authentic and open with me. Allows me to be a more powerful coach with them. And I think you build a rapport a lot faster and can go a lot farther. Even someone that you get along with and you have a good rapport with, it takes a while to really build up that trust level with them in person in that setting. And, in therapy, it can take you 6 months, a year to really trust that person. And with coaching, you establish that rapport instantaneously almost.
So I do all of my coaching clients on this Zoom platform as well. So I can just one-click recording. It's live video just like this is right now. And my masterminds are the same way. Do you think that I should switch back to just doing audio only?
That's a good question. My answer would be, I don't know, I'm not going to profess to know a lot about exactly what you coach on, but I think from what I know is you focus on business, right?
Yeah.
I think it's a little bit different because a lot of what I do is a lot more personal around mindset. And we talked about niche before. A big part of what I do with all my clients is no matter what their focus areas that they're coming to me for, we spend a lot of time on their mindset and their mental and emotional health, because I do kind of have that background, and also because I've seen that that's the foundation for everything else going on. So more than the typical coach, I know how important that is, and a lot of coaches gloss over that, and their clients continue to feel stuck and fall back in that same rut. So we talk about a lot of very personal things around their own inner resistance and limiting beliefs and fears and worries in a way that I know you get personal with your clients. It's probably different, I think, with business coaching or career coaching. So I would think for what you do, Zoom could be really great. But for me, I think because we get probably a little bit more deeper on a personal level. And I know you are personal, so I'm not saying that it's not, but I think it's just a different area, that you're delving into. And I think for me, that's why it's a little bit different. But I don't know. It's worth exploring and seeing what works for you.
Yeah, it depends on the client, right? One guy who we don't talk a whole lot about personal stuff. The other one, we were talking about being organized, and I can see, whether or not the office is organized or where he is, or another guy, he took his laptop out to the porch on his beach house. So the water was rolling in, and we talked a little bit about that, but that one's less personal. Yeah, it would be. Yeah. I've never seen the tide roll in like that before. It's high tide, low tide, and through the course of the call, you can see it on video. I guess you can't see my hand. The water was coming up closer and closer and closer to the house, and rocks we could see are now at the end of the call underwater. It was really cool, but there's no stereotypical come lay on the couch and I sit behind you with the notebook and all those kinds of things. I don't want to say it's anything goes, but it's definitely results and purpose driven. But the process of how you do that seems to differ from one client to another. And I don't know if it should be more regimented so that you can, I'm all about having a system. But I don't know how that would necessarily apply to the coaching thing. Can you give us an idea about what you charge now and how you got to that point? I know we're running short on time, so if we have time for that kind of question.
No problem. I'm definitely raising my rates a lot over time. I'm currently running a special, actually. The reason for that is because I'm traveling the next month and a half, and I have some clients' spaces open up for my fall schedule, so I'm offering a little bit of a discount now. So with that, my 3-month package is $1,500. My 6-month package is $2,500, and my year-long package is $4,500, and I'm offering 15% off that right now. So I don't know what that breaks down to, but
the first one was $500 a month.
Prices.
Okay, so you said $1,500, and then what? The 6 month was $2,500,
right? And then $4,500 for the
year. Okay. Can you tell us where you started and how long it took for you to get to that point?
Probably took over 3 years. I mean, I started at free, and then where did I go from free? I think I went from free maybe to 75.
A session or a month?
A session. Yeah.
Okay.
I think I went from free to 75.
I think my first coaching client was like, that's one where we did one session. We met one time a month, and I think it was like $300 or $400, and I figured out this big long proposal and curriculum and all that stuff that I kind of threw out the window. But by the way, if anybody is keeping track, my first coaching client kind of came to me. She was a blog reader. Another coaching client I went to and said, hey, I think I could help. Another one came to me from hearing me on another podcast and thought I could help him. So we're in a similar thing. It's not all from one source, which is good.
Yeah, that's good.
Another question from Steve says, as an aspiring coach, what can I do to learn more about this? And I assume this would be coaching. Where can Steve go, and anybody who wants to be a coach go to learn more about how to become a coach?
Yeah, good question. Well, first of all, I'm happy to talk to you. If you have any questions, you're welcome to email me. My email is val@valeriegroth.com. I'm not pitching you about my coaching. I'm just happy to answer questions. So seriously, get back to me. I'd love to talk about it. I'd love to talk about coaching. Love to see good people go into the profession. You know, when I started, I got a lot of books on it. I'm the kind of person I like to research and feel prepared. And I bought a lot of books about coaching. Looking back, I didn't need to have done that, but it made me feel more confident in myself at the time. So I guess it was useful, but you don't need to do that. I don't think, like I said, I think you just kind of need to get some clients and get out there and get started. If you are going to invest in coaching school, you definitely want to make sure it's an ICF certified school, because they're going to do a much better job. And eventually it will be something that is more regulated. And once that happens, you're going to want to make sure that you put your money into a really good school. So you have the accreditation. Yeah, coaching schools are not cheap, unfortunately. Oh, I'm sorry. You do need to invest in your own coach. How could I forget that? And that's the most important part, really. And any coach will tell you that a lot of coaching schools believe it's almost kind of unethical to be a coach and not have your own coach. So that's really, really important too. That's the only way that you can kind of get started coaching without having any experience or without going to a coaching school. So you need that practice of working with someone else for multiple reasons. One, so that you can see how that experience works and what it's like to be on the other side of the table. And also, of course, I think, you know, everyone needs that outside perspective to help them figure out where they are and where they need to be. But you have to figure out why it's so important to invest in yourself. And a lot of coaches, whether they want to be life coaches or business coaches like you, they're like, well, I just want to get started. I want to hire my own coach. Well, I understand that, because when you're starting, you're bootstrapping, and I get that. But if you're not willing to invest in yourself and hire a coach, you're going to get clients who come to you and they're not willing to invest in you either. You know, That's just kind of how it's going to be. And you need to be able to understand why that investment is so important. I know Zig Ziglar used to talk about how he would sell pots and pans. And, you know, Zig Ziglar, I'm sure, right? And he was the best at selling pots and pans. And the other guys would say, well, why are you so good at this? And he said, well, I bought the pots and pans and I know how great they are. And the guys would say, well, I'm poor and I'm 20 years old. I don't have the money for this really expensive pots and pan set. And he would say, how can you possibly sell these to people if you don't believe in the value enough to put your own money into it? And it's kind of the same thing. So I know it's hard, guys. Like when you're starting, you just want to cut costs, but you really, really have to put the money there, or I think you're always going to keep getting stuck and always get those clients who are not going to value you and want to invest.
And I always think of this as the example when it comes to coaching, and I think it's important to point out is that coaching isn't like hospitals. Hospitals are for sick people, right? You go there when you're sick. Coaching, Michael Jordan had a coach. The coach, I never finished it, but or maybe I did. Phil Jackson's 11 Rings, where he coached 11 NBA championships. He's a coach coaching the best players in the world, and it's he can see what they can't see because he's not on the court. And that's how I see coaching is we're not in the trenches. We're not in the field. We're not above or anything. We're off to the side. We're this third party perspective. And we can see things that the actual players, the client and the players in their lives, we see things that they can't see. And if those guys with the Super Bowls and the NBA championships and all those kinds of things, you know, how could you ever coach Michael Jordan? I have no idea. Well, but he valued a coach. Right. I mean, they have a coach, somebody on the sidelines rooting for them. My last question before we wrap up, Val, and I know this is going to be relevant to more than just the person who asked it. You have multiple passions, 2 or 3 passions that you're either maybe good at or just very interested in. Should you coach in all 3? Should you niche down? Should you focus on one? I don't know if that's a yes or no question, but I tried to make it one.
And this is what, to coach on, or how to follow these different passions?
Should you can I be a coach for all 3? That's the question.
Yeah, good question. I've been asked that a lot. I think kind of like what I just said about getting started. I think you just kind of have to get out there and see what works for you. If you really are undecided and you have 3 or 2 or 5 really strong passions, that's really the only way to find out, is to get out there and get started. And I'd rather you dabble in all those different things now and eventually find a path and see what you're strongest in and where there's a bigger market. I think that's kind of all there is to it. I think their question is they're probably very different fields. How do I market myself? I think at the beginning stages, though, you really don't have to worry about that as much. And you do, marketing is important, but at first you got to figure out what you love to do and what people want to pay for, what you're really good at. And I think the best way is just practice. And that's why, going back to the idea of branding yourself, if you're Valerie.com, I do this, and this, and see what people come to you for. And eventually you might want to niche down. You probably will. But I think it's just practice and getting experience and getting your feet wet.
Man, I wish we had more time, but I know we got to wrap it up, Val. Thank you for your time and your expertise and wisdom today. Where can people who want to know more about you, check out your coaching programs, find you online? Where can we send people to connect with you?
Sure. I'm at valeriegroth.com, which is spelled GROTH. And my email is val@valeriegroth.com. I'm on Twitter and Instagram at Valerie Groth, and I would love to talk to anyone further. So, get in touch.
Perfect. And we'll put all those in the show notes and in the membership page under the experts calls and everywhere else. Thanks for your time, Val.
Thanks, Valerie.
If you haven't already noticed how passionate I am about surrounding myself with the right people, I want the same thing for you. I want you to surround yourself with the right people. I've known Val for, 18 months or so, and we've met maybe once, and this is one of the best calls that I've had with her. And I get to do this kind of thing every single month inside of the membership site. But one of the coolest things that I get to do is talk to these people and get feedback from them for myself, for my own business. And if you're listening to this live, maybe you are on your way to Podcast Movement right now. I know my friend Catalyst John is probably in the car as we speak, and I'm looking forward to seeing him again. And I'm looking forward to seeing all the people that I saw last year at Podcast Movement, the people that I met for the first time at New Media Expo a couple years ago. And this Friday, I am talking about blogging versus podcasting and how to build your media empire. And though I don't necessarily feel qualified to talk about that, I do have a certain level of expertise of creating a diverse portfolio of products and services that meet people like you where you are. The audio, something that people listen to, the blog, something that people can read, and coming soon is even more video, something that people can watch. And none of that would be possible without the community and network of like-minded people that I've been able to surround myself with. So if you're one of those people, I want to say thank you. And as a listener, I want to encourage you to be extremely conscious and careful about the people that you are giving pieces of your life to. We only have 70, 80, 90, maybe 100 years, maybe 120 if you're going for the Guinness Book of World Records or something. But we have a limited time on this earth, and the people that we give a slice of our life to, make sure that person is worthy of a limited resource that you have. If you will be at Podcast Movement, check me out on Friday at my PMX talk, blogging versus podcasting and how to build your digital media empire. If you can't make it this year, or that is not something that you are at all interested in, you'll still get the benefit of that talk here in a few weeks, maybe a couple months. I'm not sure how long it will take me to get that produced and available to the general public. But either way, I still want to provide that content and that value to you. This is another episode, number 94, of the Empowered Podcast. I'm your host, Ellery Wells. Thank you for listening. We'll see you next week.